Sweet. Recording is started. This way, everybody can access this, share this. We'll be sharing it on the GRC Slack. And if you registered, I'll also be sharing it in the email. But I'm Benjamin. I use he or they pronouns. I'm currently based out of Tucson, Arizona. Been working in permaculture and regenerative agriculture for the past year, so relatively new to the field, but been very excited about the projects that I come across. Been in this environmental world for a little bit now, and so just grateful to have the opportunity with GRC and all of our wonderful speakers, all of you, to be connecting all the different stages of the food system. We start off with just a little bit of intro for the summit itself, and also for Joshua and Bemeriki, who will be speaking after Joshua, and a little bit about their projects. If you could possibly mute yourselves, that would be very helpful just for the flow of the session. So basically, a little bit about these sessions. The summit is Fixing Our Food Systems, Regen Ag Summit by Global Regeneration Collab. The Global Regeneration Collab, just to give a little bit of overview, if you're not familiar, is a network of over 1,000 people who have been working in regenerating our economic, environmental, and social systems through art, through music, through conversation, community building, regenerative agriculture, as we're talking about here. And it's open to all. If any of you would like to join, I can put the link in the chat after the session. And the summit itself is meant to connect the food steps of the food system. We were thinking about what to call this. We wanted to call it a regenerative agriculture summit. And then we were like, some people really don't like that label. Let's call it a permaculture summit. And you realize that all of these different labels have people that identify with them, people that don't. You could have all the labels in the world, and then you talk to somebody who identifies as indigenous or practices indigenous agriculture, from which all of these other forms of alternative agriculture essentially originated, and they don't subscribe to any of those because those came from people outside of their culture, in terms of those specifically. So all of these traditions that we're talking about in terms of revolutionary food systems change do originate with indigenous communities, which is also why essentially all of our speakers either identify as indigenous themselves, either by that word or their native language, or work tightly in coalition and in solidarity with indigenous peoples working to essentially reshift our food systems to a new version of what they've been practicing for millennia. In this, we're looking to connect the different stages of food system, not just looking at food production, which is what we'll normally think of, but thinking about also everything around that. I met a lot of people who were doing incredible work around food production, and they couldn't find a market for their food. People who were doing incredible work around food production had incredible markets, but didn't have community buy-in. So they were working as essentially islands in this movement. And this is a struggle that I hear often from many people in the field. So here we are speaking with two shining stars and working at these projects. Joshua from the standpoint of long-term agroforestry, community care in Puerto Escondido, Costa Rica, and Bemeriki from the standpoint of working within his local refugee community in southern Uganda as a refugee from Congo since 2007. So got two very incredible complementary models of projects that really are connecting those levels around us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Joshua, and he'll take us away. I have some slides that are just going to be playing in the background. Because of internet issues, we don't have a full presentation, but Joshua will carry us away with his charisma and eloquence. So wonderful. Joshua Hughes is a visionary in sustainable farming and community-driven impact projects. His journey from a wrecking yard in Southern Oregon to a big bioregional recycling company to a regenerative farm in central Costa Rica reflect his dedication to positive change. Joshua has planted millions of trees and plants, reducing erosion, improving local ecosystems, and reversing brain drain in his neighboring community, which cooperatively manages all of the projects that they are working on. He founded Verdenergia Pacifica, the Blacksheep Regenerative Resource Management, and Rewild Organics, and engaged the community, creating ownership shares for sustainable projects.
Your videos are already.
Blacksheep, driven by community needs, addresses land care, employment, and training. Joshua's work promotes sustainable and regenerative agriculture, permaculture, whatever language you want to use, supporting local economies and ecosystems while respecting cultural diversity. He values education, collaboration, and environmental stewardship in all of his projects. And he will share that in much better language with a little bit more color right now. So yeah, and again, I want to say if you could mute yourself, it'd be very helpful. And again, this will be recorded, so all can see this following. So Joshua, I'm gonna put on our little presentation and you can take it away.
Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever anyone is at. It's the morning time here in Costa Rica. I'm not at my jungle farm right now. I'm using a background screen, but I had to come into the city because monsoons were hitting pretty good yesterday. I got 10 inches of rain, so I came in so we could all hear each other today. So you might hear a bus or a car go by. That's not my normal life here. I'm Joshua Hughes. I've been at this I've been at the regeneration or upcycling and in the regeneration game most of my adult life and most of my childhood, actually. Being raised, as Benjamin said, I was raised in a wrecking yard in Southern Oregon. Not exactly the way I would imagine thinking of myself as a regenerative person, but as I got perspective on that as I got older, what many people thought of as garbage and were throwing away or letting go of, like old cars and stuff, were actually still had a lot of use in them, from the parts to the car itself to all of the metals and plastics and stuff that were sitting in there. So as a youth, while it seemed like a pretty dirty business, I was formulating myself in my own narrative and finding myself in what other people thought of as garbage. I found gold in, and that translated into my early 20s working in the recycling business, as Benjamin said, and I ended up doing papers and plastics and a bunch of things in Portland, Oregon, that was dozens and dozens of shipping containers a day pulled out of the waste stream. At least that's what it felt like at first. As time went on, I really did feel what it meant to be involved in kind of faux recycling or faux greening, and that did not feel good. So as I got older and matured, and as the world became more obviously in need all the time of more thoughtful action, like the post 9/11 world, it really shifted the way I thought quickly about the way people are affected around the world. And I was pretty naive about all of the geopolitics and stuff around everything from food to any resource and thing that we consume in at least in the US. So my path led me to getting pepper sprayed a lot, trying to fix and protect forests in Southern Oregon. And I didn't want pepper spray to be my future. I didn't want just saying no to be my future. There's a lot of things that are worth saying no to, but I didn't really know what to say yes to as I started to fall into this crisis of how I was going to apply myself, and how what I was going to kind of whatever allow happen in this world, downstream or upstream from my consuming. So I founded Verdenergia with dozens of friends and family. That's our principal farm here in Costa Rica, in Puriscal, little town called Lanes. There's a picture right now of how it looked when I got there. Pretty much all around me, there'd be a few trees here, and then mostly just cattle farms as far as you could see. And on land about yay steep is pretty normal. And so my area had been cattle ranching for about 70 years, and it was cloud forest before that. So it was a real tragedy when I got here. And what I was seeing here was the need to lean in on forestry work, but I didn't get resistance. I got support and love from everywhere, from the government to my neighbors. A lot of support. The national park systems, everybody was kind of gearing up towards this future of rebuilding the forests in our region, in our bioregion. So Verdenergia was founded by my friends and I to have a space to do this, a space to dream, a farm to start experimenting on. Over the years, I've put probably 350, 400 different plants to work on the farm to see what would work, to see what would work in a changing climate, to see what would work in an already changed bioregion and already changed local weather patterns. Really, the old systems weren't working, and the timing for when rain came and how much rain came wasn't following the farmer's almanac anymore. So Verdenergia was founded to try and figure all that out, and we spent the last 17 years experimenting with these types of lands that were totally denuded. You can see kind of the stair step that's happening in the photos that Benjamin's playing. That was the cattle doing that to the whole region so they could get to every bit of grass. After a few seasons, after several years of planting trees, I didn't know really what to do in the beginning, except I needed to get busy planting trees, and we could see what happened out of that. So we leaned in hard with the local Ministry of Agriculture, the local co-ops, and the national parks, and a program started right when I got here to protect the corridor where the scarlet macaws breed between these two national parks, Parque Cangareja and Parque Carrara, and they're about 5 miles away from me on each side. So when we started planting trees, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest, you know, we get a lot of rain. I realized I lived in a desert after I moved out of there and came to a really rainy place. But I'm used to trees growing very slowly. But here, in short order, things came back. The trees we planted that brought birds back, the birds brought in more varieties of trees, and I started to see these kind of small pioneering actions we could make, like finding the right way to have short-term benefits, but also be working on the medium and long-term problems that my region had, like erosion and the fact that there wasn't much farming going on because most of the topsoil disappeared. So in our experiments at Verde over the first 10 years there, we learned what we were lacking, and it wasn't just and we built community.
This is a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah, I learned what we were lacking, and what we were lacking was a lot of things. The community had been dissolving. People had been leaving since there wasn't a lot of opportunity to make a living anymore with agriculture. And when you do cattle ranching out here, it only requires a couple of people for thousands of hectares sometimes. So the people were leaving. We were losing neighbors. We were definitely losing our youth. And the culture around us was kind of disappearing, and it was becoming not just a monoculture of grass, but a monoculture of culture. It was just pretty much the elderly and people that couldn't afford to go change and work in the cities. So we really felt the pinch of what urbanization and brain drain was happening in our area. So we had to create some new tools, and it wasn't just the tools on the ground. I mean, the planting trees is the fun part, frankly, and that's not so difficult. You get out and put them in the ground. But the tools that we needed, being kind of 45 kilometers from the nearest town, 30 kilometers from the nearest pavement, we needed some infrastructure, and my neighbors were searching for that too. A lot of the infrastructure and literally like roads and power and internet, things like that, we needed that as well. But we also needed the infrastructure for the food systems that had to be kind of rebuilt. And there are some co-ops that are lots of co-ops in Costa Rica, but they're really centered around the export crops, and they're really centered around just a few things like coffee, pineapples, bananas. And those haven't been the best crops for this country. They've actually made Costa Rica now, with those crops, we now use the most chemicals per meter of any country in the world for agriculture, more than China, several times more than the US per acre. And that's heartbreaking, because at the same time, Costa Rica has protected more of its land than most places in the world. I think maybe more than any other place in the world. So we're really focused here on doing better. We're really focused here on bringing back wildlife and bringing back the culture of trees that were here for millennia or here forever. But at the same time, where the agriculture in this country was giving my neighbors cancer. So Black Sheep was built to be the formal response, to help formalize our response to how we build our collective farms, how we get access to everything from investment, equipment, and the right tools and experts, to access to markets and everything. So our little farms, much like our neighbors, needed the same things. We're a long way out from the big markets of the world. Costa Rica is a pretty small country. So, this is the challenge that me and my team have dove into over the last several years, is trying to figure out how to create everything from the value added goods and the things that would actually leave money on the farms. I kind of dove into this a little bit already as I was introducing, but the situation I came into was that most people in the I'll call it the global South, whatever, there's a lot of expectation on us to fix the problems that are of climate change, of soil and forest degradation. And we are on the front line of this, and there's a lot that can be done here, but it's a lot to expect from people who have been left behind financially, left behind culturally, and stomped on, frankly, for 400 or 500 years. Where I'm at, there's a long history and a lot of consequences from colonialism. And I don't want to be too negative. I'll jump through this quickly, but colonialism turned into extractive agriculture. It turned into which has now poisoned water and local populations and has caused a real problem. The campo, the countryside here has been emptying. People move to the cities, and it causes its own kind of problems, and the lack of choice for people to maintain the culture if they'd like to, staying in the forest and and being a part of nature out where we're at, not just having nature be kind of a national park thing and then you go live in your city. But some of my neighbors want the choice to stay. So the neighbors and community around me that wanted to stay, we started thinking together and talking we talked every day for 10 years to figure out what was needed and what could be done that wouldn't be just another progress trap. Because I mean, pineapples may have seemed like a good idea when they showed up in Costa Rica, but now the cancer rates are through the roof and the forest is disappearing all around me. And the palm oil is taking up all the forest along the coast. And it's I recommend people come to Costa Rica and enjoy it, but also take a deep breath and take in what these big monocultures have done and are doing now. And it's still a type of colonialism that I personally don't want to have any part of. I am born and raised in Southern Oregon. My family's from California and Oregon, West Coast. And I take it very seriously to be someone who moved to Central America that wasn't from here. It's a sovereign responsibility of mine not to stumble into a neo-colonialism based on carbon credits or something. So, or based on making everything in a type of progress that I see fit the community needing. So we took very slow steps at Verdenergia. We took steps that were more like I moved into a neighborhood and became a neighbor. I didn't move here to start a big C community. I didn't know what that even meant. I moved here to be part of a community. So rather quickly, the problems became pretty obvious. I spoke of the word brain drain a minute ago. That was very acute where I was at. People who wanted education had to leave. And it's not that we didn't have a school. We do have a school down in our area. We have a high school too. It has 13 kids in it. But the teachers can't get there when the roads wash out, when the power goes away. They don't have the internet at their school. They can't do sciences. So they're being left behind in a way that's forcing the sharp kids that want to learn and be a part of a world where maybe it's not just chopping grass for a living for the rest of their lives. They have to leave, and then their families kind of dissolve in these areas, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse because there's less humans to even participate in this regenerative action on the front line. So in the last years, with Blacksheep, we've opened up to have every one of our neighbors become the experts with us. Several of the people that were 10, 12 years old when I got there are now running the projects with me and for me and with our friends. And it's been a way of developing like a conservation method that isn't just built to keep people out. I heard a great word a few months ago called fortress conservation. And I did not want to stumble into a type of fortress conservation where there's big walls up around the forest and we think of ourselves as so different. And then you cause then you can by default or by accident cause a gentrification in an area that I didn't want to be any part of that. So we've been designing this on a social level to be something that hopefully doesn't need people from abroad ever again to succeed. Hopefully doesn't need money to pour in from the rest of the world. However, a lot of this damage wasn't done by the locals for the locals. It was done for, Dole and Chiquita. And so I'm very conscious of making sure that our projects come from not what many people call the bottom, but from the community, and they go outwards. So our decisions and the way we think about it and the way we've been designing things are very much based on what our community needs and has asked for. So on our farm, some of the things we've done that are the fun parts of this, and the things we've been learning together. We've been being aggressive at building like polyculture and using polyculture tactics. We plant thousands of different kinds of plants. And we tend to weeds even. Anything that will help break through, restore, bring back fertility in soil, stop erosion, bring back the wildlife. So there's a long list of things we do, from cover crops like macuna, the vines that grow very well that will help get rid of these old grasses that were planted here, that were, by the way, dumped from airplanes to have cattle come in and be like the culture in our area. These grasses that we kind of have to learn, we have to figure out how to beat back without chemicals. And then we have to figure out how to bring fertility back to an area that's steep enough that you really shouldn't use like animal agriculture to do the regenerative work. So we've had to do this with green manure. We plant everything from Madero Negro, Huachapalin, Paro, types of grasses like vetiver and lemongrass. And we do tactics where we chop things and drop them right in place and just build back immense amounts of organic material and nitrogen, trying to get the soil back, and then keeping the soil from getting hit directly with rain. We do an agroforestry model where we have rows of nitrogen fixing trees and bushes and fruit trees that help stop the rain interacting directly with the soil. In the canopy that was before Europeans showed up in Central America, the ground rarely got touched by rain directly. It was very much hitting 1,000 leaves before it hit the ground and slowing down. And when I got to Lannis at first, every time it rained, it was rivers flowing off of every field and just sheets of brown water just full of our topsoil washing into the rivers. And in only 5 or 6 seasons of planting, those kind of things stop happening. It's pretty amazing. I have a pretty fast personality, and getting into forestry, I thought I may be pretty bored with it, but here everything grows about 2 inches a day when it's raining. So you get to see and feel the results rather quickly. And I'm inspired by the success of the forest. I'm inspired by how quickly things will grow, at least in this part of the world, when you, not even with what you do, but with what you stop doing. Taking your foot off of nature's throat was how most of this regenerated. Planting very specific trees so we could like coax the birds back in so they would help us plant more varieties than we could think about or count. That's another story. But we started doing that and listening to our neighbors on those tactics years ago. And as some of these pictures you can see, this was all grassy fields when I got here, like 100% cattle on these farms. And just in any area that's sensitive, we stopped touching. In any area that was a little flat, we turned back into food production. Because I didn't move here just to make forest. I moved here to make and displace calories from a local community. I wanted to be here to see about maybe getting rid of the most destructive type of calorie creation or tending, but what could we do to start and re-engage the amazing feedback loops that can happen and that were happening for hundreds of thousands of years when it came to humans creating or finding food in this world. So what we've leaned in on is this food forest model that has been paying off wonderfully, not just from the food we get from it, but from the biodiversity that it's creating, the feedback loops, the rain staying put, the creeks flowing year round. All that stuff happened so quickly once we started planting. And I came down here, and before the call started, before this meeting started, I was mentioning how climate change is a huge problem, but we have problems like food creation are much more acute for most people and less abstract. I feel that very much where I'm at. Climate change is like a backseat to local land-based destruction where I'm at. And when you fix things here, those areas are fixed, and the climate change affects you a little less. So we've been figuring out how to lean in on this and think about this and talk about this and frame it in a way that is very relatable locally, especially to most of my neighbors, and I mean most, like, don't have a passport, have never been on a plane. The idea of the poles melting doesn't mean much to them. So the idea that they can get to the hospital because there's not erosion taking their road out because there's enough trees now above and below the road to absorb the water. A jungle tree, for example, here, a full-size jungle tree could have 50,000 liters of water in it right now, and it could breathe and exchange another 50,000, 100,000 liters a year with the aquifer in the sky. So, those things that when they started being reality here again, forests, it was an immediate benefit. It didn't take 30 years to feel it, or we didn't have to worry about the temperature of how the temperature is going up around the whole climate. We started remedying our own area. And some of the things you see quickly when you do that, and this is something I learned years into this, is like our river is a couple degrees colder than it used to be because trees are bordering the river all the way to the aquifer or to the spring. Amazing little solutions and lessons that I got along the way that have given me a deep hope. And I didn't even like that word 20 years ago, but now I'm feeling a bit of hope because I've seen nature's restorative power to not just to forests, but to what the communities around it that could engage in it and benefit from this. So as farmers, where we're at, we talk a lot about forestry because it's a real important part of here. And there's so much steep land around me that I really have to lean into forest first, or what I do ends up washing away anyway. But as we got into creating food, it became really obvious that we couldn't just be in the commodities game. You can't, as a small farmer on the end of a long dirt road without access to infrastructure, the bigger, without access to things like processing equipment, trucks, easy to use roads, enough electricity to dry and package a good so it can like make it to another market. We ended up just being commodity farmers in this part of the world, and that is not working out so well for the farmers. When I got here, my neighbors that would help or that were involved in agriculture would make maybe $1 or $2 an hour during the harvest seasons of coffee or something. It was really tragic. So the race to the bottom is very real when it comes to being a commodities farmer. So value adding has been the key to the success and the key to the future success, I think, for any small farms. And this may be kind of an easy thing to think through when you're living 20 minutes from a city in the US or in Europe, and you can make some products, or you can get to the farmer's market where people appreciate organics and you don't have to package it and stuff. But when we're talking about the tropics, you know, most of our goods are going to be traveling to the markets of the world. And all the money in the past has tended to be made by those middle people that take the commodities from us. And down here on the ground, people make a couple cents a pound, maybe if that, on their items. So it Black Sheep was formed and Rewild was formed to make sure that we found a way for our neighbors and our farms to actually produce and be rewarded for producing. Now that's still a challenge. We're still working on that. We're you know, we've been at this part of the business just right before COVID is when we started our retail brand. So didn't get to really get out into the world and do the high touch marketing that we had planned, but it's been slowly on the grow, and we're figuring out where best to lean in. So now we're growing everything. We grew a lot of turmeric in the beginning, but we're growing ginger mixed together with vanilla and cacao, long-term crops like fruit trees, and then also very long-term crops like building materials, and integrating things like hardwoods and things that our neighbors and our communities can build our homes for us ourselves in the future, and or use in some international markets. Some of the wood I grow is the best tone wood in the world, pachote, for guitars and pianos, and these types of trees that I'm speaking of, they're trees that will grow very well in the savanna that was created out of a rainforest. But as the rainforest comes back, a lot of these trees that I plant that I would use for lumber would fall over and die anyway, because the natural jungle comes back. So we've learned how to lean in on those pioneer species that help bring back everything and help us with food creation, but also thinking about where our future homes come from, where our children's homes come from. So how do I plan on accomplishing most of these goals? What have I been doing? I've been leaning in on scaling a co-op that already exists in our area. There's lots of co-op mentality, but I said earlier, it's really just been for a few big crops. There hasn't been a lot of co-ops or collectives built around local food, or for small farms to take risks on products that aren't the big 3 or 4, like the vanillas and stuff, and things that we can grow really well here in the jungle, but we don't have the infrastructure to get them to market all that often. So we've been scaling and learning how to do that, and we all need to do that better. Lean in on co-ops, lean in on collectives, lean in on worker-owned farms, so that we're all in this together, using all our brains and figuring out how to do this. Another piece of this that we need to succeed, we need to build brands or start working with brands that prioritize and showcase the food producers in the regions where food is produced, instead of hiding that because it's embarrassing or it's toxic. We're so proud of what we're doing that we all need to figure out how to do collective work and branding, and collective work in finding and working with those bigger brands, and working as a co-op, so they can count on us as small producers to supply them with their needs. And again, none of this is rocket science. Any small farmer in my region already realized this, but a lot of them gave up because they maybe didn't have the resources to even start this. So that's where I come to the next step: investing. We all need to invest in this stuff. Consumers from around the world, farmers, but the companies that want to buy and manufacture goods out of what we make. We need serious investment into the plants, animals, the soil, and the financial diversification that comes with smarter farming. And that's not something that people in my region can really do. They have to count on a crop working. The numbers have to work well for like a bank, which tends to be just like one crop planted with chemicals, so you can count on it. In this regenerative world and permaculture, like, we have to have time to experiment. We have to have time to fail. We're trying to build a new food system. So we need a different model of investing. And I've been doing that myself with shareholdership model. We have about 170 people that have invested in our several projects over the last years, and that some people invest just their time and expertise, some people invest their cash, and we're figuring out how and where to take risk. And then with some of these models, or in some of the sections of this of what we need in the food systems, like processing foods and getting things value added to market and branded, not something that a small farmer in Central America is going to take the risk on either. And frankly, I don't want them to. I did not move here to accidentally cause another type of debt system that could have local farmers lose their land because their brand didn't work out in the US. Absolutely not going to happen with me on watch. So we've been developing systems and companies where people who can afford to take the risk are, and my neighbors don't have to risk their land and their entire culture to try and make it financially. So we've been doing that, and what I implore us all to do, and this is something we don't all need to move to the tropics or be farmers, but we have to consume with justice in mind, not just organics, but with justice. Every living thing is a consumer, so we can't not be consumers. A lot of people will kind of self-deprecate and call them, say they don't want to be consumers. That's not true. So we have to dedicate ourselves to ensure that you're met with regenerative practice, and we've been doing that not just on the ground, because I got to say the science of fixing soil isn't the hardest part of this. It's going to be the consciousness around how the humans are treated, how the animals are treated, how much justice there is in all of this, how much greed is in just a few parts of the market, and I've found it to be nothing but rewarding to be involved in the food side of things, because it's such a common thread. It's something we all need, obviously. So I felt good investing my entire adult life now into the future of food, into fixing our food systems. However, it's a slow go, and we're doing this all without a tax base. As you said, so many people feel like they're on an island alone. That is no joke. When you start doing this stuff, even if there's a lot of support out there in the world, I wasn't online for the first 12 years of my project because I was in the middle of the jungle. So I did feel very alone. And but my neighbors keep trying. This gentleman right here, Eduardo, he's one of my favorite people in the world. He's managing these projects for us now and with us. The inspiration I've had from people who have a dream again from their own village, and that can start to create and manage this themselves. So I'm going to be taking some questions in a minute, but in closing, I'd really like to just say a little bit about maybe why I do the work I do. It's pretty simple why I do it, but it's not easy. I want a world with justice and peaceful life for all, everything that lives. So I chose years ago to stand with oppressed people. I chose years ago to stand with my indigenous brothers and sisters. I chose years ago, decades ago, to stand with nature. And I stand against organized violence of any sort. So many billions on this planet are forced to drink water that is toxic, and that's a type of violence that I saw that I could not be a part of anymore. So I moved to a place and started doing what I could to bring justice with my action. We all must do better. Our businesses and our personal lives affect the whole, no matter what we think, and we need to act like it matters because it does. And I'm possessed by the success of nature and by what I've seen and been inspired with my neighbors coming together. And I'd like to say in closing, right before we take some questions, that it was a hard week for me to even dive in and talk about this stuff and all the positive things I'm doing with what's going on in Gaza and Israel. And I'm standing strong with my brothers and sisters that are oppressed in Palestine today. And much love to everybody in the world that wants to bring a new way. So let's take some questions. I've got a few minutes left.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Joshua. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak. Joshua, I've been calling on and off for the past, like 4 months now. Every time, say goodbye like 5 times before another topic comes up. So always from the work you're doing and the heart you bring into it. So just to also add a little bit of context, Joshua today is talking about kind of like background on his project, a bit about like market creation, finance, investment. And then tomorrow in our panel, which is happening at 1500 UTC or 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, this exact same time, he'll be focusing in on that kind of the cooperative management of land that he's been modeling with his neighbors community, in addition to reversing brain drain. So those more community aspects. So I wanted to ask a question before handing it off to everyone else. Maybe like this might be a little bit more nitty gritty, a little more technical. A lot of people who are doing these projects, both like basically all over the world, there's always that balance of, well, it's hard to find, it's easier to make food than it is to find the markets for food sometimes, especially to food that requires more initial investment, that can cost more, and so that's to be sold more. Depending on where you are, that food isn't always as attractive to people when the goal is just to put food on the table, right? So I saw that a lot in Ecuador. So you're talking about that a lot in Costa Rica. I guess I'm curious about how you balance the like prioritizing local markets for that more sustainable income, for giving back to kind of like the community that you're in, with international markets where you can have, through value-added products especially, much greater returns that can sustain this kind of like these projects in different ways. People focus a lot on funders, investors, and you're working a lot on that on your own financial independence. It seems like that balance of local international markets is key to that. And I'm curious how you balance those and how you even create these markets or access these markets in the first place.
Sure. So we went to work immediately years ago on planting local food forests, so we could kind of be ahead on that. We did nothing but plant trees that would support local food in our little village. And our village only has like 15 homes in it, 20 homes maybe, and within a couple kilometers each way. So we mimicked our neighbors. We went with what they did. There's dozens and dozens of trees and stuff here that will feed you pretty much year round. So we use everything from pehiwaye, which is an amazing fat and protein grown out of the trees. You get 500,000 calories out of one tree in a year. And now things like jackfruit and bread nut and breadfruit and so many things that just grow automatically in these climates that they're really perfect for tropical consumption. And they that was something we really did early. And not a lot of that was ever even really built to go to local markets. It was built to feed my village and surplus to pour into our bioregion. That part, we never really planned on commercializing all of that or much of that, but we've been paying attention to what worked with the least inputs and the highest outputs, because we all here in the jungle, it's hot and you get a lot of rain and you get a lot of sun, and you don't want to spend a lot of time out trying to figure out how to fertilize these steep hills. So we try and find the plants that are that let you be a lazy farmer. So a lot of trees are growing, and we've been doing the research, and this is where it comes to that export market part or the investment part. Over those years, we've been researching how to process crops, how to do it efficiently, and what's even worth trying to scale. And we found certain crops like turmeric, ginger, some high value superfoods and herbs that are easier to dry and package and get out of the country. And those are how we're getting towards like financial revenues, is by value adding, making things like golden milk, which I'd love it if you'd all try Rewild Organics golden milk. That's a really beautiful taste expression of what our village is doing. And then now we're leaning in more and more as we've found products that work like golden milk, that we grow more of the ingredients that we need for that final retail product, so we don't have to buy it from abroad to do it. So we've been learning over the years what worked. I had a lot of time not to not worry about failing, because I wasn't going into debt at my farms to try things. So now when we take these steps and we're going to take risk and like free and package and put out like several thousand retail units, we've been doing that with investment from like the US and Europe. People will help us value add and put together a retail good, and then we can go out and try it and sell it to the world. And as those produce and work well, or as those sell, we lean back in on the farms and add those ingredients. This year we've added vanilla, we've added black pepper, we've added cinnamon. We're adding everything we need to have basically a golden milk farm co-op down here, because it seems to be something that people really love. So that's how we've taken the slow steps. I wasn't a farmer who switched one day from conventional to organic, so I didn't have like this scramble to do it financially, figure it out that day, or like fail and lose my farm to the bank. We were building a forest farm, and then we're learning how to harness the surplus. So I didn't come at this from already producing and like have to meet my old numbers. I came at this from like, how are we going to build a forest? And then now this is pouring out of it. So now the challenge is figuring out how to find more and more value added goods and or producers of the world that want to lean in and have farm collectives like us that are really doing good things, that are ahead of the game a bit when it comes to regenerative ag. We're here to lean in on, and then we can produce more and more. We're basically soil growers first. What we spit out of that is whatever the world really wants to demand that's worth it. So that's kind of the long answer. The short answer is I need to find out more things that y'all want me to grow. Tell me you need Hawaiian ginger, and we'll have it in a season, and we'll do it the right way, all the way from how the neighbors are treated to how it's packaged when it gets to you. So that's where we've been focusing our financial energies to try and figure out how to get bigger investment poured into this. So that, again, the farmer doesn't have to take all the risk. And like you said, it's not the hardest thing to grow something, but how do you sell it for more than a commodity price? That's Black Sheep's entire mission. And it's what I spend most of my days doing now.
Sweet. Thank you, Josh. I got two questions. I'm going to combine into one because we only got 5 more minutes.
Okay.
And I think they are kind of like two sides of the same coin. Kandida Shin was asking about the ways that now that your neighbors are reimagining, or even just like imagining in general, what financial sustainability looks like through cooperation with Black Sheep. Maybe what's changed, what horizons have opened, or what space is now available for what people were always wanting but didn't necessarily have the platform for. And then Josh Felser also happens to be my father. Was asking about revenue streams that help make farms like yours, like in Costa Rica and in the world, financially sustainable, and they need offsets to survive.
Okay, so
both of those are kind of
that's
around
a big one.
like, yeah, financial sustainability in your project, and also in terms of what people around you are thinking in terms of that long term.
So one thing we did to balance that out without needing like subsidy from abroad, hopefully for too long, was figuring out that I could also grow building materials. Like I said, I alluded to a little bit earlier, but that's an important piece of what we do. I think of like the tree that's growing for guitars to be produced in 25 years as just a really slow growing carrot or squash. It's another piece of the gardening or farming. And I think a lot of farms have separated themselves from forestry, where Weyerhaeuser and Georgia Pacific are going to profit $30 billion this year, profit between two companies. So that's farmers have kind of been left out or walked away from that because we've been forced into such monoculture that thinking, how do you balance out your project? How do you get finances to work? How do you get investors to see it and not just think about this as a super risky, super slow way of making money, if at all, if you're just doing yearly crops, is to balance it out with those medium and long-term polyculture crops. I got mangoes, avocados, breadfruit growing in and around the cacao and over top of turmeric and things that are going to pump out this year. So my risk is pulled out over many more years. And then there's really solid de-risked parts of this, like tree growth. Even if you have a bad season or two, if you have a windy year, it doesn't blow away all your fruits, or you have a bug year, it's not going to destroy all the lumber too, even if it destroys your tomatoes. So I lean in hard in diversity and biodiversification of my investment in a farm. And I'll invest about $25 into a tree. By the time I partition the space out for it, plant it, chop it for a few seasons, prune it a few times, and that tree, about the time of its life cycle, 20 to 25 years, and as the jungle comes up around it and takes away its light, and it gives it what we'd call wet feet, that tree doesn't want to be there anyway. That tree could be worth $1,500 or $1,000 or $2,000 to in the value added market again, to go out as lumber. So we're figuring out where that makes sense. And this is coming from a guy who was locking himself to log trucks at one point. So I've learned myself which trees are going to be the piece of this farming model. And then in the sensitive areas, we don't touch those trees at all. If it's steep, I'm never cutting them at all. But that's one way that we've made it work out financially in the long term. So investors that want to be in this, that want to help, that want to buy farms next to us and have us reforest, that there is at least a future where these things can take care of themselves. Or as I've done, I've created large tree trusts where I trust in the forest growing, and it's a trust for me and my family one day to retire us. And since we are a model that's owned by our neighbors and ourselves and our workers, it segues back into that. Our neighbors already had this tactic just to survive out here for generations. So I've learned this mostly from them, and leaning in on that and doing what they suggest along the way and what they think will work has created real buy-in, because I didn't just come here with an idea and implement it. I came here and built the idea with them. And having my neighbors own this with me and be shareholders and maintain ownership of the farms with us lets them be just as much a part of the long-term gains as us that are investing in it with cash. So that's what I would suggest, is people own this together. And then we can make these decisions together. It's not like an us and our employees. It's a, we own these things. What are we going to do? So yeah, and I've learned most of the tactics I have here from them. So it's really just integrating that back in, and then having the time and patience and money and privilege not to have to produce any one year, do or die. My neighbors were told for 400 years, if you didn't produce, the boss man would let you go, or they'd move along to the next community and cut it down. That's not going to happen for me. I'm not an absentee owner. I bought my farm. I live there. I've been there 20 years. I built it in a way with a cooperative model of ownership that it became practically a trust that can't be sold all at once anyway. So the way that we built the corporations, there's several dozen or hundreds of owners that own these things together, so they become practical trusts. And then the forest owns it. And in Costa Rica, when you get up to a certain density of forest anyway, it becomes protected. So happy to help build forest and then leave it to them. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the next talk. Thank you all for your time. And tomorrow will be fun. We can get more in the weeds on this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all your thoughtful answers. Thank you all for your questions, and apologies if you were not able to get to all of them. There was somebody who was interested in potentially learning how to support. I shared a lot of information around different projects that Joshua, his community, is working on. One of the easiest ones is to obviously buy their products, and then you can also enjoy them as well. And again, in the follow-up email, for all those that registered for the event or who are already in Global Regeneration Collab, I'll be sending out information around the projects of all of our different speakers, keynote speakers, our panelists tomorrow. And if you have any other questions that came up, please come to our panel, which will see Joshua and a bunch of other practitioners in food systems change. And you can ask them then. I wanted to, before we move on to Bemeriki, who is here wonderfully, we're asking that everybody who is joining either shares this opportunity, this summit, with 5 or more people in their community, or donate through our Open Collective page. All these funds will be split between the projects that our speakers are currently working on. And if you would like to join the Global Generation Collab, which is putting this on, I also shared a link to our website. But thank you again for Joshua. We can do a little round of applause virtually. It doesn't always work that well on presentations, but thank you for your time. Sweet. We'll now be shifting to Bemeriki. Bemeriki, do you want to, maybe if you want to put on your video, or we had some issues with connection earlier on, so thank you for your patience in advance. And I'll be pulling up the presentation now. Sweet. Wonderful. Here, one moment. Here, Bemeriki, you're welcome to unmute yourself now. And
hello, good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the 4 or 5 corners of the world. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a little
sorry,
bio.
I have had a lot of challenge due to network. In Uganda, we have much rain, and Africa with its development, especially when it comes to Uganda with the political instability, so it is somehow challenging. Well, Bemeriki Bisimwa Dusabe, a refugee from Democratic Republic of Congo, living in Uganda, in Rwamwanja refugee settlement. I've been in Uganda for almost 16 years. And that's the years that I've made in Uganda. And I'm the founder and the director of Rwamwanja Rural Foundation Limited. Let me take you a bit introduction of Rwamwanja and the Rwamwanja Rural Foundation Limited. Rwamwanja is a refugee settlement located in southwestern Uganda, in Kamwenje district, Kibale East, and Nkoma Katareba Town Council in Uganda. And the Rwamwanja Rural Foundation Limited is a refugees-led non-profit organization started in 2015 as a group to help women on how to grow food, especially vegetables in Sac Mount. And in 2018, we were registered as a community-based organization, and in 2020, during the COVID-19, we were registered as a non-profit organization, and the URSB, which is now, we have submitted request to be registered with the Uganda NGO Bureau, and we are waiting for the certificate to come soon. Hope our registration number is seen above there. So our value, we said that due to the fact that refugees are poor, though we exist poor, it doesn't mean that we have nothing to do. That's why we say that we exist purely to push our vision and the mission, not just to perpetuate for our existence. And the mission is to make a highly nutrition, ready to use food product and affordable to those who most need them, while also increasing awareness on the benefit of food. This comes as a result to the food that we have been getting from World Food Program, and it was cut due to COVID-19, and also the conflict that are rising all days across the world. So our vision is to promote historical civilization to mankind, to make sure that the household is able to have food on table at a time they need, while also trying to scale up from Rwanda refugee settlement to another settlement. And we have a mission that we will reach the entire world, and that's why we are here too. So our goal is we believe that when we will be looking at it shortly. Hopefully, we are going through that. So we believed that when we empower the community, they will no longer have dependence on the WFP food donation that comes from Mexico, Australia, America, and Europe. And when a pandemic or any conflict arises, they say, no, there is no food. So we are located in Rwamwanja refugee settlement, as I said earlier, Nkoma Katareba Town Council, Kamwenje district in Uganda. Our contacts are seen there. Next page. Next page, please. Oh, cool. So our mission is to uplift the life standards of refugees through 3 projects that we run. There are majorly 3 or 4, but there are more if we are to just divide them. Sorry, we have livelihood, we have environment and energy. We also have education, which is vocational studies. So you can see, as you are seeing, that's the shelter for pig. We have distributed pigs to most of refugees and mostly for orphans. With the food diversity, we have taught many refugees, almost 12,000 refugees have been reached directly since 2020 up to now. We have tried to see how best we can empower refugees. As down you can see, we have women engaged in making gardens using local made materials, which are just this is banana stems that we have used, and you can see this is the beginning. And here on the right corner, you can see that we have more vegetables where the gentleman is just standing. Next page.
And sorry, can you see the page that we're on right now? Here. Sorry, I think that Bemeriki accidentally got muted somehow.
Cool. So in the project that we are having mushroom. We have permaculture and mushroom. Permaculture comes in as the one component when we look at the principles of permaculture and ethics. So that's how we came up with the permaculture and the mushroom of producing no waste. We get agricultural waste, we grow in mushroom to enable families attain nutrients and nutrition food from mushroom, and also get medicine from the mushroom. And we also have for us to be able to teach people and reach more people. That's how we came up with the laboratory that you are seeing. This is one of our member who is Perth Motesi. Those that are in bottle are more mushroom spawn that we have in our laboratory in Rwamwanja refugee settlement. This laboratory covers most of the refugee settlements that we have across. All farmers that we have trained, we are empowering them by giving them as knowledge and also materials as well as spawn, because there is nowhere we could get spawn unless we get it from Makerere University. That's the only university that produce spawn. So we have got our own knowledge and we are trying to produce our own mushroom spawn locally to make sure that refugees get it at any time they want. So far, we have 12 groups, and each group contains 35 members. That those are 35 households. And if we are to multiply it, we almost have 425 families that are trained in mushroom. They are all growing in mushroom, and they are enjoying and getting food as well as money. Next page for the value addition. When we grow mushroom, we not only focus on growing, we also focusing on adding value. In value addition, we make porridge, mushroom porridge from the mushroom. We have came up with this initiative of making mushroom porridge because the WFP had a program of CSB, which is complementary supplementary breastfeeding. That is a porridge that is made from other parts of the world. But because we have all materials available with us, that's why we have came up with this initiative of making this porridge. This porridge is made with the rice. We have rice flour, we have millet flour, we have soya beans, we also have mushroom flour. It is nutritious, it is also medicine to have nutrients, to have protein and energy with it. That's what we are making with mushroom. We also sell mushroom powder alone. We also make mushroom coffee and also mushroom cookies. That's what we are doing in permaculture. Down there, we also, when we look at the environment, we conserve the environment by planting trees to make sure that the environment is protected, because we as refugees, we have caused more harm by cutting trees down, burning charcoal, as well as getting firewood. So we have come up with the initiative of collecting waste in order to make briquette charcoal for household to use, because we believe that all waste that are produced from household level, if it is collected and recycled into briquette charcoal, it will help the family. So we collect the waste, we first dry it, we sun dries it. After sun dry it, then we put it on that carbonizer that is behind that gentleman. We carbonize it by turning it into biochar. Then the biochar will be used into the farm to activate the soil. Then the rest also with the next portion, we use it to make a briquette charcoal. So we are showing the way we work in environment and energy. When we look at energy, we make this briquette charcoal. We also teach families to use how to make Lorena stove, which is energy saving stove, which uses little firewood as well as little briquette chapel. We can use 4 pieces and it cooks food. We could use a band of firewood. So the youth, we engage youth in trees planting to conserve the environment as well. That's mostly what we do. When we look at education, we train youth in different types of skills, where we have hairdressing, tailoring, we have knitting, we have mechanics, we have plumbing, and many more skills that we offer. We don't also stop from there. We also train women to make that porridge as well as making their own spawn, the seeds, so that they can be able to make it whenever we are not around. Hopefully, in short, that's what we do. Even here where I am, I'm in Hoima district. I have traveled 300 kilometers. We have African mushroom festival, and I'm here with the same product that you have seen here. That's what I will be showcasing starting tomorrow. Thank you for listening. Hope you can ask if you have a question. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bemeriki, for a wonderful presentation. Bemeriki and I met a while ago when we were doing some highlights for GRC, and he was at the top of the list then, and was also at the top of the list for the summit when initiated. I think he was the first person that we reached out to hear speak because of the incredible work he's doing. I also wanted to add, Bemeriki is very humble, but also received this year the 2023 Lush Prize, which is one of the largest prizes in regenerative work like this. Specifically for Lush is obviously it's a big brand for beauty and personal care products, and they have this grant set aside for this very large prize to reward the incredible work that people are doing around the world. I'm going to put in the chat now links to Bemeriki's LinkedIn and his work, including also the article written by Lush for his prize. And if you search him on YouTube, there's much more, but I want to hold space for any questions. We got around 12 minutes for questions, so feel free to put them in the chat. I'll start off with just one. I remember when we were talking before, you talked a lot about your relationship to the agriculture that you would do with your family and drawing upon that in where you are now. And I'm curious about if you could speak a little bit more to kind of like the role of the practices that your family has carried out for generations. You talked a lot when we spoke about your mother and relationship to working with your mother in this work. So I'm curious about the inspiration of your family, or what inspires you day to day in terms of your roots in the work that you do. I think that he is muted again. One moment. Yeah. Sweet.
Well, thank you for the question. We involve children and the youth. First, we started with women, the mothers, and then we grew to group. As I speak now, I have permaculture for young people in schools, where we have 6 schools that we are implementing in permaculture. We have 1 secondary school and 5 primary school. And also we have got an interest from university. We are also implementing permaculture at Bugema University. It is the oldest university in Uganda, and it is the only oldest Adventist chartered university. And there are students that who are doing bachelors in environmental science and agricultural science have expressed interest in permaculture as a project for their own research, in order to see how best can organic work better than inorganic. Because in Africa, what we mostly learn is only theory, we don't do practice. So far, we have started at university, at Bugema University, and also we have started at a secondary school and 5 primary school. Next year, it's when we cover up the 12 primary school and the 2 secondary school. I'll be implementing permaculture for young people project at school for 14 schools, including one university to make 15. Thank you. That's how children are involved. We believe that children are the soldiers or ambassadors of tomorrow. And by training them from school level, when they go back home, they replicate what they have learned from school, and the parents also learn from them. The reason to why we took it at school is that it's the place where many people are, and many people do visit mostly when there is a parents meeting, and also all youth can see if we make a sub mount, they can also copy when they leave school, they are going home, they can make it at home. And when they make it at home, more parents also learn from them. That's how we want to cover up the entire settlement and the entire community, not only settlement and even host community, because schools involve anywhere, anyone that comes up across the school. Thank you for the question.
Another part of Candida's question that I thought was very interesting was specifically like, what are the main questions when getting involved? I think that a lot of these practices are familiar to anyone who works with soil, but there are some ways in which things like maybe specifically mycoculture, working with mushrooms or other things might be new, or people have their own ideas about what this type of agriculture is, who is for. What is the main question that people, specifically children who are learning this, have about this type of work?
Well, the following question is if at all a biochar project providing sufficient fuel for cooking. Of course, it is doing so, because the time we started this, we had a number of women and young girls that were being raped when they crossed into the host community to look for firewood and also look for charcoals, and those cases have been reduced. And also this biochar briquette made is really working better because it is smokeless, and the waste is produced anywhere. We have a lot of beans that are being grown here. We have maize that are being grown. Once we collect the maize stalk and the maize cob, and also we collect the beans husk, we are using it just one portion to grow mushroom, and another portion for compost, another portion for briquette charcoal. So we are recycling the waste into 3 things: one, to grow food and also cook the food that is produced from the waste, and also taking it back to the soil to reactivate it as a compost, because the residue of mushroom growing, we are using them into the farm as a compost. And also the food is being cooked by the same waste, which is briquette charcoal. Thank you for the question. Of course, it's keeping them safe, because they are no longer crossing into the host community to look for firewood. We no longer have them. And I think it is somehow helping them to keep safe. Well, the biochar project is sustainable. Moreover, we only have limited resources to produce much as we could, and also support more groups. But with the little, because I only have one, I have one carbonizer, I have one crusher, I have a set of machines. There are 5 that is just a set for that is used for training purpose. We train, and if we at all we are aiming at serving like 10 groups. Of course, we need more than 5 sets to enable each at least 2 groups to have access to one set. Once this week, if people are just carbonizing, the next group will be carbonized on the next week. So that's how it is. And remember, it is the metal. Once the more fire, the more it hits by fire, the older it grows. So that's why it is sustainable, but not much as we could, because we are limited by the materials that we have. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions people have? Obviously have hundreds, but yeah, if you would like to ask a question also in person, feel free to just raise your hand and I'll ask you to unmute. Okay, well, I would love to know, oh, you got another one. Apart from biochar, are you working on improved cook stoves in general?
Well, this is the thing that we are doing. Once we make this briquette charcoal, it is not used in the normal stoves. We are making Lorena stove. It is made in mud only. We make mud. We get mud. We mix in some maize stalk and also some beans husk. We mix it together, we compact, we make something like a stove, and on top of it, we put some metals which keeps the 3 or 4 piece of briquette charcoals that we put. It is sustainable because it is also, once it gets fire, itself it burns, even if the briquette charcoals are already consumed, because it takes more than 3 hours running, or just once it is done, the stove that is made in that mud keeps burning, so it can still even boil water to make it hot if you want to bathe when the briquette charcoals are not there. So that's why what we are also doing, we are trying. The 12,000 people, those are the people that we have reached directly. We have more that we have reached indirectly because the center is being visited all the time. Many people have visited us there. So even people that came from Europe, America, like the team of Alliance had come to visit me, team of Regenerative. I have other members from German that had come to visit me, and also team of Lush had also visited me. So far, the family that you have trained, they are happy with the project. They have coped, and even more organizations have coped the method that we are using. They are as well trying to teach more people and also refer more people to us for further training. So the 12,000 that you have reached are quite different from other families that are yet to be reached. We are aiming and looking at reaching more people. The more the season comes in, the more waste that is being produced. Only that the challenge is how do we correct the waste to reach the final store cross. That's the problem.
Well, thank you all for your questions. Thank you, Bemeriki. I wanted to say that basically, I'm happy to, Bemeriki, if you have time, we can also keep Q&A going for a little bit. Next, after this, we have a regeneration pollination session with Lauren Minnis, which is basically a session for networking, for meeting people, relationship building. They have this system for using breakout rooms and full group conversations to just meet some really incredible people. Participated in the past, been wonderful. I'll be helping as a Zoom tech for this one. That will be in 15 minutes time. I will have to go to prep for that, but Mariki, if you want to, you're welcome to stay on here, and you can have 10 more minutes to answer questions if you'd like to. Would you want to do that, or do you have a place that you need to go?
No, me, I'm just here. I'm just here. I'm going to answer for the Mwanza.
Okay, sorry.
Well,
so I'm going to step out, and I wanted to put in here, for any of you who joined recently, our link to funding our speaker and participants projects. All speakers are paid at least a base pay of $100. For transparency's sake, we want to be able to pay them for their time. But if people want to add additional care, gratitude for the work that they're doing, we're asking that all members of the summit either share this opportunity with 5 other people or donate themselves. So here is the link. And again, this is recorded. I will send out the chat afterwards. People can see links to everybody's work. And I will leave you all to continue your conversation. So yeah, so feel free to, I'll just step out of the room. Oh, and also to be clear, all sessions for this week use the same Zoom room. So if you're excited to stay on for the regeneration pollination session, all you have to do is step out, get some water, or stay in the room. It'll be on the exact same link. So yeah, I'll leave it to you, Bemeriki, now. But yeah, Bemeriki, you're welcome to respond to Wanza's question or any of the other ones if you'd like to.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, sorry, I'm just managing a couple of things.
No worries.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a decent turnout this morning for the keynote. I know a lot of people had to go. Hard to know how many people are going to come back for the pollination session, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you resend me it's been a crazy week. Could you resend me the Zoom Tech information?
The where is it? Sorry, here.
Between my two emails, I sometimes have difficulty.
Yeah, the Google Doc.
Perfect. Wonderful.
So just make me a co-host so I can share screen. I added a couple of things in here. Just as like obviously you have the AI bot. You might need to make the AI bot that's for the session itself a co-host, so that when you do the clicking and click off the box, because it's actually clicking off the box to leave co-hosts in the main room. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory when you do and stuff, but
yeah, I also am not going to be recording this or the recording at all, anything for the.
Oh, that makes sense. I was going to say if you were going to record, like you would want to just pause it or stop it and then start again. But yeah, it doesn't make sense exactly. I mean, unless people are sharing, did you decide, did you decide about if you were going to, for you're inviting people in between breakout sessions to share, like we're going to keep the questions that we have as the prompts?
Yeah.
Right.
I think the questions you already had are perfect. And then I'm happy to also I'm happy to also tag on for the getting people to talk about themselves session, because I feel like also I want to say something about also specifically this being practitioners oriented. In GRC, we'll see a lot of people who are interested in the theory. We want to have space for them as well, but this is actually for people who are actively engaged in this work, and us to have the opportunity to listen to the work that they're doing. I know that it is possible that I don't know if you've met Rick, but he likes to, for example, butt in and talk for a very long time. So just trying to avoid that.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise,
I tried to fix some of the language in the script, and I added also in a couple places like the registration link specifically for registering for the pollination events in the tech in the chat, which the tech person puts in the chat. So I also added just saying something about how we got our start as a project of GRC. And that, and then we just give a little background saying we're connected and GRC is still one of our partners. Just give me 1 second. Hey, Brian. I'm leading an event now, so I can't be disturbed, okay? I'm leading an event, so I can't be disturbed. Be disturbed. Thank you. Sorry. I had to prep my roommate to not interrupt me. It's good. That's always important.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else to cover? Just the specific tech, when you do the settings, when you click the wheel, when you open breakout rooms, there's a specific setting that you have to click when you're for the breakouts that are specific to our breakouts. And then
What do you mean by setting that is specific to our breakout?
meaning, so in the tech section, right?
Yeah.
When you first open breakouts, right? You click us, you sign automatically, you
Yeah,
click
yeah.
off the box,
Yeah.
then then you gotta go to the settings where all that stuff there, right? And then in the social hour, you change the settings where and all that stuff's in there. So that's like the second or third row to the bottom where it says the different settings that you change.
Yeah. And I can also, I'll be, for example, like when people, I'll make the breakout rooms when people are joining in.
Yeah.
Just to have that all set up, and I'll just be quiet and doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that. And this is very similar. I used to, for college, do like race training things over Zoom. And so this is familiar from that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm
yeah.
just checking I got the slideshow pulled up already.
Yeah. And you can feel free to double check. I obviously have them all over the place. So don't feel like you can depending on, some people are holding back from managing more than because they don't want people to feel like, I don't know, suffocated. I won't feel that way. It'll be helpful. So just feel free to, if you feel like I'm doing something wrong, have any doubts, just let me know immediately.
Sure. I have to go to the jeez, hold on a second. Code of respect. Okay, so it is 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just making sure I had to fix the order of my slides. So I know what I'm doing, but the numbers are wrong. 1, 2, and then this is 3, 4. There's only 5 slides for this event because I took out the partner slides.
Also, it's recording me. I'm gonna turn off the recording now.